So I really compliment him of allowing me to say what I had to say. I speak from the heart. It's my opinion. If you don't like it, you can tell me. And obviously, I was surprised.
The camera caught it before anyone said a word. Alcaraz walking off court in Madrid. Shoulders dropped, eyes somewhere else entirely. The crowd's still clapping, and Carlos already gone in his head. Nobody on the broadcast mentioned it. Boris Becker did. The six-time Grand Slam champion didn't bury it in a diplomatic non-answer. He didn't soften it for the cameras. He sat down, looked straight ahead, and dropped the bombshell that the tennis world is now scrambling to process. Alcaraz's family's pushing him too hard. That sentence is now everywhere. This isn't noise from a retired player chasing relevance. This is the man who built Djokovic into a dynasty, a coach, a champion. Someone who watched Carlos dismantle Djokovic at Wimbledon 2023 in straight sets, conquer Wimbledon at 21, and carry an entire sports weight on a 22-year-old frame. April 2025. Barcelona exit to Jarry. A result nobody predicted. Madrid semi-final loss to Sinner. A schedule so relentless it would break a veteran. Becker watched every second, then he spoke. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, do it right now. Because what Becker is describing isn't a bad week. It's a slow-motion crisis nobody wants to admit is happening. So let's actually talk about what Becker said, and more importantly, why he said it now. The statement didn't come from nowhere. Becker has been circling this topic for months in various interviews and punditry appearances. But the most recent version of this concern was direct, specific, and impossible to misread. He pointed at the structure around Alcaraz, the family, the inner circle, the decision-makers, and said the pressure being placed on Carlos has crossed a line from supportive into something more damaging. That word choice matters. Becker didn't say the schedule was tough. He didn't say the commercial load was heavy. He targeted the family specifically. That's a surgical accusation from someone who knows exactly what he's saying. Carlos Alcaraz Sr., the father, has been a constant presence in Carlos's career from the beginning. The family from El Palmar, a small town in Murcia, Spain, rallied around Carlos when he was a child hitting balls at the Real Club de Tenis de Murcia. His development under Juan Carlos Ferrero, himself a former world number one, was built on a foundation of family sacrifice and total commitment. That foundation is not in question. Nobody is disputing the love or the intent. What Becker is questioning is the execution at the highest level of the sport, because there is a significant difference between a family that supports a champion and a family that drives one. Support absorbs pressure. It creates space. It tells the player that losing a match doesn't shake the foundation. The other version does something different. It attaches worth to results. It fills the calendar because the window feels urgent. It makes every tournament feel like a referendum on whether the sacrifices were worth it. Becker lived inside that dynamic, not as a player being pushed, but as a coach watching it happen to others. During his time coaching Djokovic between 2013 and 2016, he saw firsthand what it takes to manage the psychology of a player carrying generational expectations. He understood the weight. He understood what it costs when the people closest to you need you to win as much as you need it yourself. That experience is exactly why his words land the way they do. Now look at Alcaraz's 2025 calendar through that lens. He entered the Australian Open in January as a genuine contender. He pushed deep into the Australian Open before a draining quarterfinal exit that left visible marks on his body before the clay season even began. The physical toll of that match was visible. Within weeks, he was preparing for the South American clay swing, then Indian Wells, then Miami. The transition to clay in Monte Carlo came fast. Barcelona followed. Madrid followed that. In any given 4-month stretch, Alcaraz played on 3 different surfaces across multiple continents without a significant break built into the schedule. His team has consistently chosen to enter nearly every tournament available to him. The logic from a ranking and earnings perspective is understandable. The logic from a physical and psychological sustainability perspective is where Becker's alarm begins. The Barcelona loss to Nicolas Jarry in April 2025 was the moment that crystallized the concern for a lot of observers. Jarry, is a capable clay court player, but he is not the kind of opponent a fully locked-in Alcaraz loses to in straight sets. At a tournament he has dominated before. The scoreline wasn't the story. The way Carlos moved was the story. There was a heaviness to him that had nothing to do with the surface. His post-match interview was brief. He mentioned fatigue without calling it fatigue. He talked about needing to find solutions without specifying the problem. His father was seen in the player's box with the same unreadable expression that has become familiar at these moments. The Madrid semifinal against Sinner was different in texture, but similar in outcome. Jannik Sinner is the world #1 right now, and losing to him is not a scandal. But the manner of the loss, 4 sets, the second of which Alcaraz essentially gave away through unforced errors that felt more mental than technical, added to the accumulating picture. Sinner, for context, has built his 2025 dominance partly on a schedule managed with extraordinary precision by his team. He has skipped tournaments strategically. He has prioritized rest at moments when rankings pressure might have pushed another player to compete. The contrast between how Sinner's camp manages his calendar and how Alcaraz's camp manages his is not subtle. Becker is not blind to that contrast. Nobody with his level of experience is. The commercial dimension of this situation deserves attention too. Alcaraz is currently one of the most marketable athletes on the planet, not just in tennis. His endorsement portfolio includes Nike, Rolex, Movistar, and a list of global brands that reflects his crossover appeal beyond sport. Each of those partnerships carries appearance obligations, content commitments, and a brand presence requirement that exists entirely outside of match preparation and recovery. A player at Federer's level in his prime had the same commercial weight. But Federer was 25, 26, 27 when that machine was fully running. Alcaraz is 22. His body is still in the phase of development where load management isn't a luxury. It's a biological necessity. The tendons, the joints, the connective tissue that absorbs 10 hours of practice and match play per day. These structures in a 22-year-old are not the same as a 28-year-old's. Sports science is unambiguous on this point. The question Becker is implicitly asking is whether the people making scheduling and commercial decisions around Carlos are factoring in what the science says, or whether the urgency to capitalize on this window is overriding it. It would be unfair to paint the Alcaraz family as negligent or calculating in a cynical way. There is no evidence of that. What there is evidence of is an inner circle that has not yet built the infrastructure to say no, to turn down the exhibition match, to withdraw from the optional Masters event, to protect the player from the machine that has grown up around him because he earned it. Ferrero has spoken carefully in public about managing Carlos's physical load. He is clearly aware of the risk, but a coach's voice inside a family structure has limits. When the father, the agents, and the commercial partners are all aligned on maximum participation, the coach is one voice against a consensus. This is the structural problem Becker is pointing at, not malice, misalignment. The historical precedents are not comforting. Marat Safin was arguably the most talented player of his generation, multiple Grand Slam champion, world #1, and he was finished as a serious contender before he turned 27, consumed by a combination of physical wear and psychological exhaustion that his support structure never adequately addressed. Leighton Hewitt gave everything his body had by his mid-20s and spent the remainder of his career fighting injuries that were partly the product of an unmanaged early load. These are not ancient cautionary tales. They are recent enough that every serious person in tennis knows them by name. Becker knows them better than most. What makes the Alcaraz situation particularly complex is that Carlos himself shows no public signs of wanting to slow down. He is competitive to a degree that borders on compulsive. He wants to play, he wants to win. He pushes himself in practice harder than coaches ask him to. The drive is completely internal, which means the people around him cannot rely on Carlos to pump the brakes himself. That internal fire is what makes him extraordinary. It is also what makes him vulnerable, because a player who genuinely loves competing will compete through warning signs that a more self-protective athlete would acknowledge and act on. The family sees that fire and interprets it as health. Becker is suggesting they may be misreading the signal. There is also a geopolitical dimension to Spanish tennis culture that plays into this. Spain has produced more clay court champions per capita than virtually any other nation in tennis history. Arantxa Sánchez Vicario, Sergi Bruguera, Juan Carlos Ferrero, Rafael Nadal. The culture around elite Spanish tennis is built on relentless physical work and sacrifice treated as virtue. Resting is psychologically uncomfortable in that environment. Protecting a player from competition can feel like weakness when the cultural framework around you equates suffering with earning. Alcaraz grew up inside that framework, his family grew up inside it. Becker grew up in a completely different tennis culture, West German, technically rigorous, analytically driven. The gap between those two perspectives on player management is real, and it may be part of what Becker is reacting to when he looks at how Carlos is being handled. None of this means Alcaraz is heading for collapse. He is too talented, too physically gifted, and surrounded by too many intelligent people for the worst outcomes to be inevitable. Ferrero's influence remains significant, and Carlos himself has shown the ability to raise his level in the biggest moments even when fatigue is clearly present. The Wimbledon 2024 final against Djokovic being the most vivid example of a player winning through sheer force of will when the physical resources were not at their peak. But Becker's warning is not about this month or this tournament. It is about the trajectory. It is about what happens to a player who runs at maximum capacity from age 19 onwards without a structural intervention that forces the machine to slow down. The tennis world has seen this story before. It has not always ended well. What happens next depends almost entirely on whether the people inside that circle are willing to hear what an outside voice, a credible, experienced, genuinely concerned outside voice, is telling them. Becker is not the enemy of the Alcaraz family. He is arguably doing them a favor by making this public, because private concerns about star players rarely change anything. Public ones sometimes do. The ball, in every meaningful sense, is now in their court, and the entire tennis world is watching to see what they do with it. If this video gave you something to think about, something beyond the match results and the rankings tables, then this channel is exactly where you need to be. We don't just cover what happened, we cover what it means, why it matters, and what nobody else is willing to say out loud. Subscribe right now and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Because this story around Alcaraz, his family, and the pressure building inside one of the greatest young careers in tennis history, it is far from over. The next chapter is already being written. Make sure you're here when it drops.